as Skip E Lowe looks at Hollywood. One of our guests today is Bernice Altschul, the personable owner of the famous Carlos and Charlie's Meeting Place of the Stars on the Sunset Strip. Neither a river, a bay, nor a car, our other guest is the talented Mark Hudson of the Hudson Brothers. And now, here's your man of the half hour, Skip E Lowe.
Mark Hudson, the Hudson Brothers. 3. Where from?
Originally, Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon.
Portland,
I
Oregon.
love Oregon.
Isn't it beautiful?
Ah, America.
I come from, not too many people know Skippy, I'm Italian.
Italiano.
Oh, Calabrese Sicilian. Hey, Bella.
Love
Bella.
it.
And the thing is, my family migrated obviously from New York to Pennsylvania, and during Prohibition years, this kind of little scoop here,
Right.
the whole West Coast for bootlegging was Tacoma, Washington, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, and San Diego. My family, Italian, moved from Pennsylvania to Portland, Oregon, and there's actually an area in Portland called Brooklyn, if you can believe it or not.
I believe it. I believe it. But you know something, Mark? Northwest. Beautiful, beautiful places in
Yes.
America. Everyone in America goes to Europe, travels around. They should go up Northwest and visit that beautiful place.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah.
One of the best coastlines you'll ever see, I think.
Yeah, I did it once.
Oh, isn't it just gorgeous?
I loved it. Anyway, Mark, Canada. Went to
Yes.
Canada, or New York? What?
Went to New York first.
New York.
New York first. Left home when I was 14 and a half. With my mom's blessing, you know, it was a very emotional sort of thing.
As an actor, or?
No, as a musician. All 3 brothers, too, which is weird. I'm in the middle. There's my brother,
Right.
Billy.
Right.
We're 17 months apart, very close in age. She gave us her blessing. We went back east to do music.
Yeah. Close, very close?
Very, very inseparable.
I see.
Our first divorce as the Hudson Brothers is when my brother Bill married Goldie Hawn. Was really the first time that we were ever truly separated.
You're looking over there, Mark. I got to tell you quickly. The audience still doesn't know, but we have a lovely lady.
My other girlfriend.
Your other girlfriend, Bernice, from Carlos and Charlie. Bernice Altschul. Oh.
Altschul. God bless you.
I love it.
That's it.
Bernice, how are you, darling?
I'm just great.
He's keep looking over there, and I'm
Because
talking.
we love each other.
My
Is that what it is?
my eyes
Is that what it is?
my eyes
Okay,
attract
that's
the beauty.
okay. I was trying to get there.
Okay, you have my full
Bernice
attention.
looks wonderful
Is she
today.
beautiful?
Thank you.
Where the stars meet, where that wonderful Carlos and Charlie's fun place. Isn't it a fun place?
It's great. I'm there all the time. You want to find me, Carlos and
right?
Charlie? Oh, yeah, it's great.
I got to talk to you. Okay,
Okay,
so
go ahead.
the Hudson Brothers moved to New York, and
Again.
then what
Fail
happened?
miserably.
Yeah.
We were too young, too green. It's all the paying your dues stories.
Right.
We came back to my mom in Oregon, got us back to health. Let's try Los Angeles, Hollywood. Why not? My uncle was the late Keenan Wynn.
The late
Keenan Wynn just passed away this last year.
He was wonderful.
He was really, it was my sort of spiritual leader to my future. He took us in. His nephews, he said, come and live in my house, and there he was in Brentwood Park. And
all 3 of you?
All 3 of us. Maids, and it was a complete, we were completely out of our element. His guests every night at 5:30 was cocktail time. Lee Marvin, Robert Mitchum, Steve McQueen, and at that point it was impressive, but not so impressive because I was so young, I wasn't really aware.
How about Van Johnson? You missed Van Johnson.
No, well, Van Johnson was at that point was kind of on the outs because
was he?
Well, he was has
a little,
Keenan's first wife.
I see.
They kind of like split apart a little bit, but we'd be sitting there after a few drinks. All the lessons would come out. You know, Lee Marvin would start talking about acting. He goes, it's motion pictures. You don't have to say a word. And all of a sudden he would sit there with those great blue eyes and he would do a scene with Keenan without speaking that was just brilliant.
Okay, Mark, I got to ask you.
Go ahead.
The Hudson Brothers.
Yes.
First television.
Yes.
Canada?
Canada. We were discovered.
Mark Beard?
Chris Beard and Alan
Chris
Bly.
Beard, yeah.
We were found at a party down here.
Right.
We were tearing down wallpaper to stay in someone's house.
What a place to be found at. Everybody in Hollywood is found at a party.
Yes.
Michael Feinstein, found at a party.
Oh, sure. But see,
Liza Minnelli found him at a party. Go ahead.
The great thing that happened to us was that the owner of the house said we could come to the party only if we finished wallpapering his den.
Right.
So we did, and we had no clothes. We weren't dressed or anything. There was this huge party with Elizabeth Taylor and Elton John and all these stars. We were completely out of our element.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm sitting on the couch with this man, and he's just talking to me in conversation like we're having.
Right.
He starts to laugh. Thinks I'm funny. He goes, you're a very funny guy. Thank you very much. My brother comes and sits down next to him. Who's that? That's my brother. He starts to laugh that there's even another guy that was similar to me.
Right.
By the time the third brother sat down and said, this is my third brother, he was on the floor.
So?
He says, I want you to come to CBS and meet my partner, Alan Bly.
Right.
We only had one suit. One brother wore the coat, one brother wore the vest, the other one wore the pants. We walk in at CBS, we meet his partner,
Right.
and they say, let's do a screen test. Now, we'd never been in front of cameras in our lives. Sat in front of cameras, played some music, and then they wanted us to do dialogue. And we didn't know camera 1 from camera 3, camera 2.
Right.
We started to argue, but like brothers do.
Right, right.
Bill, and it's him, like the Three Stooges. Camera
Very
2.
funny. Good.
They used it. Showed it to Freddie Silverman, who at the time was head of the network.
Right.
The next thing you know, we replaced Sonny and
Hudson
Cher
Brothers.
in the summer.
That's where you were, Sonny and Cher.
Sonny and Cher in the summer. And that was the beginning. From that, we did Razzle Dazzle, which was, we were the first live humans on Saturday morning. Pre-Pee Wee Herman. Before that,
Right.
it was all cartoons. Chris Beard and Alan Bly developed a show called Razzle Dazzle, which was a variety show
Right.
on Saturday morning for 3 years.
The Hudson Brothers.
Yep.
Comedy act. Oh, I loved them. Aren't
Comedy.
They,
Yes.
they were funny.
Actually, you know, it's funny. We did the Wizard of Oz in St. Louis in the Kenley circuit on the summer stock.
Kinley.
Now, oh yeah, he's great. Well, we don't know which one he is, but
Yeah, right,
he's great. We did the Wizard of Oz with Margaret Hamilton, the last time she ever played the witch on stage. We sold records out. It was a great thing. I did the Lion.
Great.
Pretty good, too, I might add. And she said a very neat thing to us. She said, you know something, you guys were born too late.
Too late.
Too late. Because she thought we were a throwback, because we weren't just musical, we were comedic, we were dancers. We were, in other words, we kind of had the feeling of the old MGM, you better be able to do a little bit of everything or you're not going to exist.
I see.
And the problem we ran into was that television was not ready for rock and roll. Because television would see us play rock and roll and they'd say, well, they're comedians, why are they doing rock and roll? And then the music world would see us do television and say, why are they doing television when they're a rock band? So it kind of became a dichotomy.
Bernice,
Yes.
where are you from originally?
The Bronx.
Bronx, New
That's
York.
right.
I
Born
love
and
the Bronx.
brought up, had my
you
whole
have
family.
a wonderful husband,
Oh,
George.
he's a doll.
Everybody in this town loves George and
great.
Bernice. Am I right?
He's just the greatest.
Just.
We're going to be
Bernice,
married 40 years this October.
40 years. How many children do you have?
I have 2 children, a boy and a girl. My daughter brought us out here because they had to move, and we came with them. And my son lives in Texas, and we have 4 granddaughters.
Why did Bernice come from to open a club so late in your years?
Well, I
took over
really-
Carlos and Charlie's. I mean, that is a very popular restaurant. Busy.
Yes.
And you're
we're
there.
very fortunate.
You're there early in the morning.
8 o'clock in the morning to 1, 2 every morning.
Why,
7
Bernice?
days
Tell
a
me,
week.
you love it that much?
I love it that much, and I could do my bookkeeping early in the morning. What I could do from 8 to 10 would take me a whole half a day, because before the phones start ringing and people coming in. And so it's just been wonderful for us. But I started as the bookkeeper, so everybody
York.
has a chance. No? Oh, yes. I worked 30 years for one man as a bookkeeper
That's
in New
great.
York.
30.
One job out of high school, and stayed with him until I moved out here.
I see.
In fact, I left when I had my children, and then he called me back for 3 days, and I stayed another 19 years.
What kind of food? Carlos and Charlie's. I got to
Oh, it's continental?
It's
No.
not just Spanish or Mexican.
No,
It's everything.
It's
right?
continental, I say, with Mexican flair and Mexican dishes. All our fish is fresh.
I love to say one thing. The people that work
Yes,
for
they're
Bernice
great.
all are just lovely. The
We're very
waiters, the
fortunate.
busboys. I mean,
We're like
they're
a
all-
family.
It is a family, isn't
Yes, and everybody feels very warm and welcome the minute they come in the
It's
door.
actually fun to go there. What I notice is you go there, like, you get this feeling of it's not just being in a restaurant.
Right.
That these guys, they greet you and sit you down, and then you, yourself, and George. It's almost like you feel you could go in there with a dirty T-shirt and tennis shoes and feel like you're having a meal at
Right,
your aunt's
exactly.
or your uncle's house.
Yes, true.
It's great.
But the birthday, everyone who goes there for their birthday,
Yes.
all the waiters
Come
tell me.
out.
My daughter, she had her sweet 16.
Did she?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
that's
It's a
right.
good place for a birthday
great.
party, isn't
Yes,
it?
we have our terrace room, which is just great. And we have wonderful wrap parties, all kinds of parties.
have
right
something
there.
here on a Monday
Weddings
night.
also.
Weddings?
We've had weddings there with
Great.
the rabbi and the minister performing the ceremonies.
I love
right
it.
there.
Bar
You
mitzvahs,
have-
that's
Bar
what-
mitzvahs, yes, that's right.
Circumcisions,
Thank you.
right.
He's helping me with all.
I understand you're going to have a children's show there on a Friday and a Saturday
and
afternoon.
Sunday afternoons, we want to
children's.
do a
Tell me,
puppet children's show.
what's that all about?
Well,
Tell me.
we could have birthday parties if there's
For
X amount,
kids.
enough children. They could have it privately, otherwise little individual
How
parties,
nice.
and have a nice puppet show
Oh, nice.
for the children. It should be a great. It's something real.
Tell
brand
me,
new.
and that's where Joan Rivers is.
Yes, she
And
does
that's
the
her
workshop.
workshop.
Right.
She left the E Little Club, searched all over Hollywood, and came to Bernice.
No,
Found it.
before, I got to tell you, after the little club, she went to the Horn.
Yeah, but it didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
But she
Maybe-
came to you.
Well, I got to say honest,
Go ahead.
yes, but I was fortunate enough to know Bill Samuth.
Right.
And I approached Bill and said, we're now doing shows upstairs.
I
Do you
see.
think Joan would be interested?
Oh, you're the one who approached her.
Yes,
I thought she...
no,
Wow, okay.
no.
Well, that's good.
That was great. And Bill said, we'll try it. We didn't know how it would work. And from the day she opened,
She
has
loved
yes, she has a full house and standing ovations.
And
the
peop-
public love her.
You remind me of Joan Rivers a little.
Can we talk? I also won the ring as one of the lookalikes. Thanks to Mark.
Did you did the lookalike?
Yeah, she had a lookalike contest.
And she won.
That's wonderful.
The network had.
Mark, do you write your own material?
Yeah, I do. For most part, yeah. When I was doing the Late Show and stuff, music...
That's what I was going to ask you. But
Yeah.
no, first of all,
I mean, as far- comedic or-
you're coming. Yeah.
Yes. Everything
You
that I usually do, I write. And I'm still working on occasion with one of my brothers.
You are.
I like working with other people. You know, it's like Ernie Kovacs or Sid Caesar and the Mel Brooks,
Right.
Doc Simon. I think
Right.
that when you get a bunch of people sitting around, that it generates an energy and
Yeah.
an excitement. And a twinge of competitive. You know, as a comic, and I'm not like a stand-up comic
Right,
at all,
right, no.
but you tend to, if you tell a joke, Skippy, I want to just see if I could do one just a little
You're
bit
an
better.
entertainer.
I
You
kind of-
really,
yeah.
I would call you an entertainer. Wouldn't you say, Bernice?
Yes, how about Carlos and Charlie's? Mark, give us
Hey.
a night.
Hey, I'll
That
give you a
weekend,
night.
I think it
Oh,
would
really?
be fabulous.
Well, why don't you?
Oh,
Some
I
weekend.
haven't decided
You
to
haven't
do
decided.
that yet. No.
But anyway, Mark, Joan Rivers. Let's get
Yes.
talking to Joan Rivers.
Yeah, well-
Musical director on Joan Rivers' show,
Right.
The Late Show.
Yes.
It was fabulous.
Really? How, a year?
Yeah, well, I mean, a year and a half for me. I mean, I was there from the very, very
She
beginning.
asked for you.
Yes. Well, the way that it worked out is I'd known Joan for many, many
Yeah.
years with my brothers. When we were on the road, we'd always cross paths and stuff. Finally, when it came down to doing the show,
Right.
I was under the impression that I might just get the opportunity to write the theme song because the competition was so high. You know,
People
Barry
trying to
Manilow,
get the- yeah.
oh, everybody wanted the
Well,
job. They knew it was going
right.
to be the show to do.
Right.
So I had a meeting with Fox, and I guess I didn't think that I had a chance.
Yes.
So my nerves were down, my cockiness was up, and I kind of went there and said, here's my theme song. If you hum it when you're sitting on the john, it's your theme, and I walked out. Well, next thing I get a phone call from Joan and Edgar saying, Mark, what did you do in there? And I thought maybe I said the wrong thing, when in fact I'd said the
Yes.
right thing.
Yes.
So Joan went to the network and said, this is the guy that I feel comfortable with.
Great.
This is the guy that I want to be.
Why do people put her down? And success, they always do, and they're so successful. What happened at Fox?
Well,
Come on, Mark.
okay,
Could you be honest with us?
Oh, yes, I could. As a matter of fact, I think that it's a story that has not really been dealt with yet.
Okay.
I think that when you take a Joan Rivers, you are dealing with a very powerful woman. And right there, that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, just the fact that she's a woman who is, in fact, that powerful.
Right.
When they first signed her to do the show, she was under the impression that she was allowed to be Joan Rivers. Now, the Joan Rivers that we know is kind of brash and kind of sassy. In the same time, she's a wonderful mother
Right.
and a very sensitive woman. She can cry. Her eyes will well with tears.
Right.
She is very, very, very emotional.
Yes.
She was under the impression that Fox was going to let her do that.
free.
Let her do
Yeah,
that.
right.
So, and they were going to give her 3 years of the contract, and don't worry, Joan, we're the flagship of a brand new network. There were
Right.
no
That's
ratings
right.
at all.
She started it.
Yes, we were it. We were
She
the first show
Yeah.
of the new Fox
Right.
network. Now, what happened was Fox had a different sensibility of what they want. They wanted to be the network with class, and they wanted to be, and they didn't want Joan saying, who you sleeping with, or being who she was.
But that's her personality.
Of course it is. Therefore,
Can't change her.
frustration set in first. Secondly, her husband, the late Edgar Rosenberg,
Yes.
was a powerful man that loved her to the point where he would do anything for her. As far as the protection is concerned, not only was he working with her, it was his wife of 20-something years that he was in love with, and he didn't want to see her be handled like that.
I see.
So he went out on a limb saying, you will not get away with this. Joan was emotionally tied because it was something that was promised to her that was supposed to be very, very positive.
Right.
I was there from day one, and I started being even involved in some of the meetings when it started to get kind of hairy. We don't want you doing this, we don't want Edgar here, we want... And I could see what it was doing to her. She would get nervous, she would get upset,
Yes.
she was depressed and not happy. They also started to say that the ratings of the show, Joan, you're only doing a 2.9, you got to do a 3.5
Yeah.
or you're
Pushing
not.
her.
But that was the
Yeah.
that was their intention. You know what ends up happening? They did not have a prime time for the network yet.
Yes.
Now, as we all know in television, primetime gets the big ratings, and by the time you get to Johnny Carson and the late-night programming, you drop considerably.
Right.
Well, Joan was doing a 2.9. Sometimes we would do a 3, depending on the guests and that sort of thing. They said, we need a 3.5. You're not doing well enough. This was before they had their primetime lineup.
Yes, yes.
Once their primetime lineup came out, their primetime shows were doing a 2.1. 2.2,
I see.
and their late night show with Joan Rivers was doing a 2.9. Unfortunately, they had already gotten rid of her
Yes.
before their prime time came out. So therefore, it was
Yes,
it was
didn't
like
give her a chance.
it was a scapegoat. Now, what happened?
Did they really like her, Mark? Come on. At Fox.
Did
Did
they-
they really like Joan Rivers at Fox?
I think in the beginning that they thought that she was going to. I don't think they ever thought she could compete with Carson. I don't think
They
that was-
always- they
I don't
never-
think that was the intention. No, I thought that they knew that she was the most powerful comedian female
In the world.
in television, as we know it.
Right, exactly.
Therefore, what a perfect way to break that bottle on the ship.
Right.
But with Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers.
What ended up happening was the big mistake that they made, and this is an executive decision, and I can't say where it came from.
Yes.
They let go too soon. And what they did in the meantime was they destroyed her soul. Because, you know, as an actor,
Yes,
as a comedian,
of course.
what you are is all you've got.
Yes, of
and
course.
they made her they tried
Bitter.
to make
They made her bitter.
and something that she wasn't.
She's not.
No,
Not really.
And because of that, you know, she, as you well know, the death of her husband,
Yes.
as well as the cancellation of her show,
Yes.
was a pretty devastating thing. Now, I can't say whether the blame to that goes to Fox or the show or the blame goes to whatever. All I do know is that if that would happen to our mom or to my sister,
Yes.
I think it would be time that the press and certain people would relinquish that. It's been a very difficult year, and I think
Yes.
they should leave her alone. I mean, The Late Show now, I finished The Late Show with Arsenio Hall.
Right.
After Joan left,
Yes.
we were in trouble. I mean, we had like guest
really
host,
were.
guest host du jour. I was stationed on Suzanne Summers' Cleavage. We had Louis Anderson. It was, every night was somebody new,
Yeah,
and we could
yeah.
not get continuity to the show.
Yeah.
We finally find Arsenio Hall.
He was good.
Oh, he was great. He was young, he was hip, he
Yeah.
was innovative.
But they didn't like him, though.
No, 13. They gave him. This is what happened. They said to him,
Why?
"I'll tell you, we as a staff. The bad thing is about networks. When a show isn't working,
Yeah.
they'll fire the set director and they'll say the show didn't work because of the set director, as opposed to the original concept, which
Right.
probably is the network executives. I'm shocked that a head has not rolled at Fox yet. Has not rolled yet. In the meantime, they get Arsenio Hall, and they say, well, Barry Sand is coming
Yes.
out to do
From New York.
the
Barry-
infamous
yeah, yeah.
Wilton North Report, which
Right.
lasted 3 weeks.
Yeah, dreadful.
And they said, you guys are off the air anyway. And this is the truth. They left us alone for 13 weeks. Fox executives, they were at lunch. And that show with Arsenio Hall that we did
Yeah.
was virtually all of us.
It was.
And at the end, they tried to get him. He was ready to do a movie with Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy.
Didn't want to do it. And now the show they have Jim and Tammy Baker, and they're exploiting
know,
her
I know.
eyelashes. And Jim and Tammy Baker have the gall to talk about their pain
I know,
and
I
sorrow.
saw it.
You want pain and sorrow? Talk to Joan Rivers about her last year, and you'll see there's true pain and sorrow. Whether my eyelashes...
She really is. Mark, she really is hurt.
Yes, she is. And I got to tell you something, and I would say
Poor
this to
baby.
an audience.
Yeah.
You know, she's a very tough woman. She's a very lovable woman. She's everything that I...
Why do we Americans crush people like that? Why do we do that? Why? Do you know why, Bernice?
No, I don't think there's really a reason for it. But look where she is now. She's doing Broadway. Broadway, and she's happy as a lark
You
now.
know her very
So-
well, Bernice, don't
Well,
you?
working with her has been, she's a woman that expects nothing. She comes in as big as she is, all ready to go on, asks very little. And I think here she is giving her an opportunity to act and perform on people that can't afford to go to see her in Vegas.
right.
You know, and put her in another wonderful line.
No, you know what else it's really done too?
What?
It's the healing process. You have a husband
Yes.
who has passed away. You have a show that has been canceled.
Yes.
You have everybody in America looking at you to make that next wrong move, not the
Yes,
next right
that
move.
right move.
You know,
They don't want that right
no,
move.
my Uncle Keenan
They
said-
always like that wrong move
You're
on
right.
someone.
Like when
You're right. My
down.
Uncle
love
Keenan's
it.
dad, who was Edwin, would always say, they only know you by your last failure. And they don't want to remember the good stuff. But Joan Rivers now has, I think, and I hope, that she's made a very good decision. She's gotten out of that house, her life with the Late
She's gone
Show.
to New York.
She's
where,
gone to New York.
Where New York is happening.
And she's
Love
doing,
it.
and also another
Love it.
great thing, and I hope it works for her, she's taken a step to do something. She's not the brash comedian
Yeah.
standing up in mono against an audience. She's not doing a late night show.
Yeah.
She's not doing Vegas. She's become an actress in a Neil Simon venue,
Yes.
and it's a complete rebirth. And all I can say is I know that New York loves her. You know, the show was just about to go to, we were going to go to New York with the Late Show, and New York loves Joan Rivers with a
That
passion.
Late Show went to New York would be the biggest
Biggest hit.
ever on television with Joan Rivers, because that's her audience.
Well, she's finding that
See,
now.
the
Even
audience in California are not Joan Rivers audiences.
No,
They're not.
No.
They're not hip enough. They're not.
Right.
It's not hip enough. I don't want to use that
They
word
don't,
hip enough. It's
they don't
not.
have electricity that New York
They
has.
I think it's
excitement.
They don't know.
You're
They're
right.
not-
You know what it
they
is,
don't
Skippy?
know.
It's a
They're
life
not aware.
a life outlook. You know, here you go to a baseball game, you don't get Cracker Jacks and a hot dog,
Yes.
you get Perrier.
Perrier.
And
Isn't that corny?
Oh, of course it
It's
is.
so corny.
In New York, you have
the
a different-
telephone and the cars.
You see,
and all
but when you
this.
look at Joan
Drives me-
Rivers, she talks like we do.
Yeah,
It's yada
yeah,
yada yada,
yeah,
a
yeah.
mile a minute. Hey, you talking to me
Yeah.
or what?
It's New York.
And all
I
of a
love it.
sudden here, it's like, oh, totally.
Isn't it
Joan,
corny?
and it's a
They don't
complete-
know.
No.
They don't know. They're all plastic.
No.
Everyone's plastic
They don't.
here, and I
They're
really.
missing out. They should
Don't
go.
we miss
Everyone
New
should
York,
go to New
guys?
York.
You know what it comes
I
down?
really wanna- what is it?
You know what it comes down to? I think that we live in a mono weather vein. In other words, right now we're sitting here in whatever month. It could be March.
Yeah.
It can be December. It can
Same.
be any.
Same. It's always the same.
It is one.
Same.
It's the same thing.
I like that Four Seasons.
Oh, are you kidding?
I
When-
love it.
when the leaves
Connecticut, I
turn.
love it.
Oh, isn't it
Would you
beautiful?
miss New York, Bernice? You've been here
I-
how many years now?
13.
13
years. June will be
But you
13
go back,
years.
do you? Do you go
I
back?
go back occasionally. We're going to see Joan for her opening. We're
Her
flying
opening.
back.
When does it open?
June 20th.
Yeah.
June 20th.
We're going back. for
Oh, I
her.
bet you're
And,
excited.
Yes,
and she's
we
so
are.
excited. You know,
Is she?
I just think, you know, in closing about her, I get kind of emotional about the subject because not only am I a personal friend of hers, you know, her manager, Billy, is
Yes.
a very good friend of all of
Yeah.
ours. And I knew Edgar, and I knew that Edgar...
What kind of man was
Well,
Edgar?
you see, some people, it works two ways. Believe me, I had my ups and downs and my ins and outs with him.
Right.
But you know something? He had one thing in mind. This is my wife, and I'm going to protect her,
Protect her.
no matter
No matter what.
what. And you know something? He protected her from me or from anyone else that
course.
would get too close.
Oh,
And you might take that as being tough.
Yeah.
Sometimes
But
they
it's
say,
not tough.
Hey, they
No,
say Francis
not at
Ford Coppola is tough. You know why he's tough? Because he knows what he wants. Edgar Rosenberg knew Joan Rivers. and
Barbara
knew-
Streisand knows what she wants. She's-
And you might say that that's difficult, but when the
difficult, but it
final
isn't.
result comes
Yeah.
out, and it's Joan Rivers being that funny and that great, whatever it was that Edgar Rosenberg was, he made a lot of enemies, but he also had a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And for the few friends that we all can cherish, if they truly know you, everyone else is just an acquaintance.
How did she pack that room in Carlos and Charlie's? I mean, California, but a lot of Easterns came to see her up there, didn't
Yes,
they?
it's a mixed.
It's a mix?
It's a mixed group. We have
Some,
everybody.
You know, some outrageous, you know, in nightclubs, she becomes a little, because nightclubs, you can do it and get away
Yes,
with it.
she
You
does.
understand?
No, no, she does.
And I love it. I think, well,
Yes.
she's, you know,
She gets a standing ovation every
Yeah.
night. The people just love her.
do they?
Yes, and
Right.
and she's now also asks, "Do you want to know anything?" She answers questions at the end of her show.
She does.
And yes, she does.
And you have Timothy Leary there also.
Oh yes.
Timothy Leary
Oh,
doing a comedy act at Carlos and Charlie's upstairs.
And on computers. It works with computers.
Is that what he does? He talks.
Yeah.
He work. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Yes, it is
Timothy
very-
Leary.
very-
That's fine.
You know, nothing about Joan, too, she's very experimental. You know, she comes from a second city sort of sensibility.
Right.
So you're dealing with a woman, and I got to work with her. She did a Showtime special
Yes.
on Heidi Bromwitz, which they didn't like the director, and she asked me, I
Right.
ended up directing the
Yes.
special for her. And in working with her, and this was the whole different way, you know, working with her as the sidekick musician was one thing, but being there as a director and hearing her concepts and her jokes, you're dealing with a woman who is truly progressive. I mean, I compare her, and I've said this in the press before, to a combination of Nancy Reagan and Lenny Bruce, which is a classy sort of woman who can get down and really be pretty...
I worked with her.
Oh, did
I
you?
had the well, I had the showcase at the E Little Club when I first arrived from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And 73, her and I were at the E Little Club together, 74, 75, whatever. And we were there for a while
Yeah.
until it closed. She used to work Fridays and Saturdays, did her showcase before she moved to Carlos and Charlie's. I had the showcase on Sundays and Mondays there,
Yeah.
my talent showcase.
Right.
That's where I brought Yaka Smirnoff. I had Michael Feinstein started
Oh,
with
really?
me. I had them all there started with
great.
Loretta Holloway. They all started with me there. And it was a lot of fun then, those days.
Yeah, yeah, we see, you know, I think that what we're starting to miss now in Hollywood in general, and this is not just necessarily in the music world, I think that we're missing this in the acting world as well. I like to read up You know, obviously with my uncle being Keenan Wayne,
You are an actor, too.
Oh yes. In fact, as a matter of fact, the series that I did called Sarah,
Right.
for Gary David
That's
Goldberg on
right.
NBC, is coming back starting June 1st.
Oh, it is coming back.
9:30 on NBC. I mean, it's reruns. But they're going to re-show the 14.
I remember
show.
that, Mark.
Yeah,
That
I
was
played the
good.
next door
I
neighbor.
remember.
with
It was
the-
wonderful, Mark.
Yeah,
Wonderful. It's going to be
reissued now, probably because of the writer strike, I'm sure. But you know, the cast was Gina Davis, who's now gone
Yes,
on to do
right.
great film, Beetlejuice and The Fly.
So you do like to do acting.
Oh yes, I
Is that your first love?
Well, I don't really think I have one. I think that you said an entertainer. I think that if I could do a love scene and then as I'm holding the girl in my arms, sing her a song, it's like a
You
throwback.
have a great face. I think your face, marvelous.
Well, actually, you know,
marvelous
so a
face.
lot of people.
Comedy, if you're a good comedian, you're a good dramatic actor. It always works that way. Is that true?
You find it. As a matter of fact, you know, my brother Brett he's another fan of yours. He does an imitation of you, which I have to send you.
Really?
It's very what's the best form of flattery is when someone's doing it.
I understand.
He does an imitation of you that is amazing. In fact, I practiced to do the show with my brother Brett being you. I'll have to send you a tape of it. 'Cause
I love
it's
to
very,
see it.
very good.
Brother married to
Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn.
He's my oldest brother, Bill.
Bill.
They were married for 6.5 years, 2 children. People always get me confused too, like, you know.
Because they think
No,
you
we
were
always
married.
said
I
Mark was
thought you were
married.
married. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't married, and I've never slept with her either.
Never slept
no,
with
she
her?
never asked me, but I will if she just calls me.
And you know, never
It's
too
a
late.
no,
Never too late.
possibility.
Bernice, what's happening at Carlos and Charlie's now? I mean, children, you're going to have children?
We have the
thing?
Children's Theater. We do a lot of wonderful showcasing. We'll
Right.
have you every Sunday night,
nights,
which
right,
is
I'm
just
there
great.
Sunday.
Because I feel there's so much talent out there. We have on Wednesday night Rocket Entertainment.
Rocket,
And-
yeah.
Yeah.
On
and
Wednesdays, yeah.
Yes, and we have great comedians and singers. In fact,
Lloyd
Pat-
Coleman books
he's-
the room?
Yes, he produces it.
And-
And in fact, June 1st, I'm going to be the announcer.
You're
Would you
good.
like some material
I love
for
it.
me?
Okay, fine.
Bernice is going to co-host the
Co-host.
Rocket Show. I think it's
That's
wonderful.
great.
I'll be the
That's
announcer
another-
for the night.
That's another
That's
very
nice.
important thing. There's a lot of talented people in this industry, and that goes from actors to writers to musicians.
Right.
And I find that it's so cliquish that it's very, very difficult sometimes to break through. And I think that people like yourself, Skippy, as well as you, Bernice, there are so many. Sometimes you see that one young kid,
Yes.
that one smiling face, or that one idea that could turn the smallest person into a huge.
Married.
Married. My
Wonderful wife.
Yes? Children? How
Bernice's-
many children?
2 that I know about.
2, huh? Nice.
I have 2 girls, Sarah and Melanie.
Sarah, you named the girl
Yes,
Sarah.
Sarah. And the problem, you know, I'm going through is being an Italian that I am. I suffer from terminal sort of.
You parli italiano?
Oh yeah,
Right, you do.
more, I understand more than I speak.
Yeah, me
all the
too, I
dirty
do
words.
too.
My
I do too.
grandfather and grandmother, I
Yeah.
know all the swearing. I have a daughter now at 16 years old, and she's beautiful. And I'm thinking, Melanie, who had a sweet
Right.
16 at Bernice's, and I don't want her to date guys like me. So I have this sort of like, anyone that comes to the house is, hello, Mr. Hudson, sir. Like, totally, we're just going to the movies. Oh, no, you're not. I know exactly where you're going. So I'm dealing with that as a father, even though I consider myself hip. I'll be